Here's from Rolling Stone. Hackers easily breach U.S. voting machines and chilling kill chain trailer. So it's very easily done. We've known this. We've reported on it here. 12-year-olds hack into the Florida voting thing in 12 minutes. New record. And here's Tim Canova. He's trying to do something about it because he's been the victim of vote tampering. Finally, a petition that could lead to real change to protect our elections with hand counting of paper ballots. If 100,000 signers petition, we will be reviewed by White House. Real Donald Trump proposed paper ballots in 2018. Now is the time to demand action. So if you go there, you click that, it takes you right to the petition right there. And let me go ahead and bring on the gentleman who's putting this together, Tim Canova, law professor, specializes in banking and finance. He ran against Debbie Wasserman Schultz for Florida's 23rd Congressional District in 2016 and 2018. Both times resulted in incredibly suspicious results. And in the first one, they actually destroyed the ballots, which was illegal. Please welcome back to the show, Tim Canova. Hi, Tim. How are you, buddy?
Hi, Jimmy. I'm doing great. Thanks. How are you?
I'm doing great, too. So tell us about this. Now, the problem is that we don't have election integrity. We don't have a paper trail on the ballots. And what do you say to that?
Well, we don't have a paper trail. And how are the ballots being counted? We either are voting on electronic machines without any paper at all in some states, or in Florida and many other states, we vote on paper ballots, but the paper ballots are counted by passing them through electronic scanning machines. They're electronic. You can rig the software. They can be hacked into. There's so much evidence of it now. It's just incredible. And, I call it faith-based voting. It's not science-based. In fact, the actual numbers that are spit out never seem to comply with the laws of mathematical computational science. But we have to have faith in a few shadowy corporations that run these electronic voting companies, these electronic voting systems. And that's why I say it's faith-based voting. It's not, the Democrats love to say they're all for science, the science of climate change, for instance. But when it comes to voting, it's like they believe in Santa Claus. They just want to have faith that these electronic voting machines are not being tampered with, even though all the evidence is they're very easy to tamper with. And people we don't even know have the means, the motive, and the opportunity to do so.
So, what what are some of the biggest warning signs about the lack of voting integrity in the United States?
Well, it is the electronic voting machine. Every democracy in the world worth its salt has simply banned the electronic voting machines. They know they're inherently susceptible to outside hacking and insider manipulation of the software. So we saw it in the primaries, right, with Bernie Sanders. Sanders was surging. He had essentially squeaked a win out of Iowa, even though it looked like there was a new app that was rigged against him. He won big in New Hampshire. He won big in Nevada. Everyone was saying it's his race to lose. Joe Biden was way down in the polls, in some states, third or fourth place, barely above single digits in some states. And then everything shifts magically for Biden. He gets a few endorsements, and we're supposed to believe that shifted millions of votes. And Biden he wins 10 out of 14 Super Tuesday states. He wins all these states by bigger margins than any of the pre-election polls or the exit polls would suggest. So now we're supposed to believe that the pre-election polls are rigged, the exit polls are rigged, but the actual election itself is kosher. So it is faith-based. You just have to have faith that nobody's rigging it, and that somehow the millennials didn't show up and the endorsements made a difference and Bernie's campaign made this mistake or that mistake. So there's always an explanation other than the voting machines.
So no, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
And what gets me is when you look at the Sanders agenda, it's such an ambitious agenda on health care, for Medicare for all, on a Green New Deal. Just those two big initiatives, the Green New Deal and Medicare for all, would restructure industries trillions of dollars, multi-trillion-dollar industries. And yet when it comes to the electronic voting machines, which is not a trillion-dollar industry, it's a few $100 million a year, he's okay, and progressives seem to be okay with having that privatized. They want to get rid of privatized medicine, essentially, with Medicare for all. They want to shift from a private energy market with the Green New Deal. But the voting machines, no problem. We'll just keep the privatized voting machines in place.
So a lot of people I respect, for whatever reason, dismiss the discrepancy between election exit polls and the actual count. So we know that in foreign elections, the UN says that anything over 4% of a discrepancy between election polls and the actual vote count would be considered that is not a reliable election. Now we've had exit polls be off 7, 8, 9, 10%, and no one bats an eye, and people say, well, that's just because the exit polls were wrong. Well, why is it that they can do exit polls in every other country in the world and they're accurate except the United States? When they're wildly off here, everybody just discounts them, and you're cuckoo if you pay attention to them. Do you notice that?
I do notice it, and I'm sorry to say it starts with the leadership. When Sanders is the candidate and he loses under suspicious circumstances and he doesn't raise a hackle about it, it's sending a signal to millions of people that, this is nothing to complain about. In my last election, we've talked about it, they gave me the same low percentage point for every demographic group. Mm-hmm. So that can't be explained away.
Let me just explain to people what you mean. So when Tim ran the last time against Debbie Wasserman Schultz, when they tallied the vote, somehow magically he got 5% in every demographic group, which is statistically impossible. Yet nobody said we should have an investigation or anybody should be investigated or fired, even after they were caught cheating the last time. So I just want to let people know what had happened.
That's right. In fact, just before the election, there was a Republican poll, it was reported, that had me up, had our campaign up at 34% in a dead heat with Wasserman Schultz at 34%. I was running as an independent. And then they cap us at 5%, such a low figure that, we really can't ask for a recount. And like you said, 5% in every demographic group, blacks, whites, Hispanics, males, females, Democrats, right, Republicans, independents, every precinct, no matter where it was located in the district, 5% everywhere. It's mathematically impossible.
Yeah. So you are proposing what?
A petition. And I must say, I think so many petitions are just futile, that they're a waste of time.
Right.
What attracted me to this idea was it's a White House petition, which means if we get 100,000 signers by late April, within 30 days, the White House will be required to respond to it. So it's going to force Donald Trump to put up or shut up, basically. And I say that because in 2018, Donald Trump had a press conference in which he endorsed paper ballots. He has tweeted about it since a number of times. He's for paper ballots. And our petition asks for hand-counted paper ballots. And when you look at where the debate is going right now between the Republicans, the Trump administration, and the Democrats under Pelosi, the Republicans want voter ID, and Pelosi now wants, I guess, 100% absentee ballots, vote by mail because of fears of pandemic. It didn't seem to bother the Democratic National Committee to hold primaries in the last few weeks during a pandemic, but now they want absentee ballots. Well, even absentee ballots, those are paper ballots. The question is, how are you going to count them? If you're going to count them through these fraudulent electronic voting machines, the establishment is always going to win. And there's always going to be rigging going on in general elections, depending on which county, which district, between Republicans and Democrats.
So
the only way to have a transparent, verifiable, fair system is to have hand counting of paper ballots in public, like they do all over Europe and like we did in this country for 200 years.
And so
Yes.
This petition at the White House website, that's where it is, right?
Yes, it's on the White House website. Your viewers can find it at our website, Progress for All. It's right there on the first page. It's pinned on my Twitter at Tim_Canova. It's prominent on our Facebook page. So it's very easy to get to. And it's a two-step process, unfortunately, for a White House petition. You have to fill it out. They send you an email with a link, and then you click on the link to verify it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a little confused. Okay, that's good to know. Thanks for telling us that.
You're welcome.
Okay.
And, we're excited about it because I do think if this gets to Trump's desk and he has to address it, I'm hoping that this is a citizen movement. It's not being filtered through Tom Perez or Sanders or Pelosi or anyone. This is a citizens movement, and there's citizens all over this country who have wanted hand-counted paper ballots. They have not been able to find a champion really on this issue. I know Tulsi Gabbard introduced the bill, but she didn't really talk about it all that much during her campaign. Now's the time. The Sanders campaign seems to have run its course. I know a lot of people are grieving. I know you and I weren't very surprised, but a lot of people are grieving about it. I think now's the time to try to get something positive to come out of the ashes of all of this. Nothing's going to change in this country. The establishment is just going to keep cheating progressives, insurgents in primaries unless we start having hand-counted paper ballots.
I agree with you, and there's no argument against it that's valid. There's absolutely no. There's is it two companies that make 80% of all the voting machines in America? Is that true?
That is true, and the biggest one is ES&S, Election System and Software. And as I've researched to try to find out more about it, it's not a publicly held company. It's owned by a private equity firm,
Wow.
the McCarthy Group, based in Omaha, Nebraska. I mean, this is so shadowy. It's shameful that people have really this faith-based approach. They're just going to trust these shadowy corporate entities they know nothing about, that somehow they're going to have our best interests and they wouldn't rig the votes. It's juvenile.
They don't. What's funny is they don't put it up to a vote. How would they? Right? Hey, should we have paper ballots? Let's put it up to a vote, but we'll count them on electric machines.
Right.
So it's even in California, again, we have a supermajority of Democrats, right? So everybody says you got to vote blue and that'll change everything. Well, we have supermajority Democrats here. It hasn't really changed much. We have the fifth largest economy in the world. We still don't have Medicare for all, free college, any of that stuff. So anyway, everybody, I'm going to put a link on. I'll remind Arno, please put a link to Tim's petition underneath this. But hey, this is the part where I tell you where our live shows are, but there aren't any. And then I would tell you to go join our premium, but nobody has a fucking job. So why don't you just enjoy the video?